There's no such thing as Singapore music.
The majority of Singaporeans suck.
Yeah, it is a bit sad that we don't really have a culture here.
There have been quite a lot of Singaporeans who actually call in the radio station and complain and say, why are you playing local songs, you know?
Yeah, I don't think we have a Singapore sound. I think it'll be very hard to try and sell a Singapore sound to Singaporeans.
Very much influenced by British bands like Supergrass, Radiohead,
Guns N' Roses,
Killers,
R.E.M.,
Interpol,
Def Leppard,
The Replacements.
Backstreet Boys.
I didn't really grow up with Asian music, you know, so it's not really in my blood.
Look at the Great Spy Experiment, they sound like Franz Ferdinand, The Killers, you know, a mishmash of all these dance rock bands. Ronin, I think it's very obvious, they're very influenced by Guns N' Roses. You look at everyone on the street basically dresses like something they've seen before on TV, how people dress, say in the punk scene. So we tend to borrow a lot of our influences from things we've seen in the media.
Well, there's no conscious effort to make it sound local. At the same time, there's no conscious effort to make it sound Western. We're just making music that we like.
It would be fake of us if we try to incorporate some, you know, Oriental kind of stuff, because none of us grew up, you know, playing with the Chinese orchestra. We grew up listening to the Beatles.
Our influences are our influences, and you can't take that away from us.
What we're doing is real.
I think Singaporeans can smell cheese a mile away. They would rather relate to what they're familiar with, which would be the Western sounds, the kind of sound they hear on the radio, the kind of bands they see on MTV, on YouTube. They'll be able to relate better with that sort of bands than to actually have a uniquely Singaporean sound.
We're not going to go out and like wear red and white with the stars and the moon and everything and say, yeah, we're from Singapore, you know, that's why we're from Singapore. I mean, I don't think we need to do that. I think that's very silly.
Our culture is totally Rojak.
It's a good mix of many different separate cultures. It's a bit like Rojak. There's Chinese Rojak, there's Indian Rojak.
Chinese-speaking people watch American TV, so there's nothing wrong with being Rojak. It's just part of our culture. And in that way, ironically, it makes us unique because in being unable to find our own identity, we have created our own
Identity.
snapshot of Rojak.
there are always bands who follow the main genre, or they've been doing it all along, but because the main genre is popular right now, so they sound like they are emulating it.
I think Force Vomit, they do have a bit of the Malay pop sensibilities. Dino, the frontman, when he sings, his accent is very Singaporean.
That was a very conscious thing on our part. We've covered, you know, L7, Nirvana, all those grunge bands, but along the way, you start writing songs along that line and you figure out, hey, this sounds like a Nirvana song. And every day you think, yeah, it sounds like a Nirvana song. If people were you know, to have a choice between a Force Vomit song that sounds like a Nirvana song or a Nirvana song, you listen to the original, right?
Radio as well always looks for music that is accessible to the masses because it's the truth of the matter.
We thought that we should have our own identity and our own, you know, something to distinguish ourselves. A sound that, you know, people hear it, hey, that's Force Vomit.
A lot of bands are very like disgruntled about, oh, how come Electrical gets the music on air and we don't get it? If you want to go and put one of those hardcore screamo things on air, I mean, it's not going to work. So fortunately for us, we play music that's accessible to a lot more people.
No disrespect to Electrico. I mean, I love Electrico and I think their quality is really, really good. But you put them aside any Britpop band and American band, they will stand head to head, shoulder to shoulder, which is an achievement by itself. But then you can't distinguish them.
Force Vomit. The way they sing and the things they write about are so Singaporean, and it's great because the music is very ethnic sounding. You know, it's very Malay. It's got that whole dangdut feel and then surf rock at the same time.
2006 favorite Singapore band.
And the favorite Singapore band is Electrico!
There are a couple of bands that actually pushed music further and made it more acceptable and raised the awareness of local music to the rest of Singapore. Bands like Electrico and Ronin, which you always hear on the radio, and a lot more people can actually listen and appreciate to that kind of music.
We are damn generic.
You really like hardcore kind of rock, right? And you sing it, and that's all you do, right? I mean, it's great, but the masses don't like that.
There are a lot of like generic people around, so they listen to generic music like us.
In general, in terms of becoming popular, you need to have strong melodies, pop hooks, and music that's a lot more accessible.
We purposely write music that sounds like something that most people will like.
Yeah, we purposely shout out because we got no integrity whatsoever.
Fortunately for us, we didn't compromise anything and we already had a sound that was like that.
The truthful answer. Whatever we write is just on our influence, so we listen to Rolling Stones and Beatles and that kind of stuff. So that is automatically, radio friendly.
The only way for an identity to thrive is if it's supported. Because if it's not supported, there's no reason for the people who are making music to actually keep pursuing it to a point where it blooms.
Give a warm round of applause to my right.
You have individuals who are committing themselves to this cause. You have the media also starting to support some of these bands. So, it's growing, but what is still lacking is the government support.
If you don't listen to the music, then it's unlikely that you support the music or go and buy the CD or go and watch the band, you see.
If the government steps in and gives money to some of these bands to help them develop and help them grow, then I guess that's how the scene will improve, that's how it'll get to where it's supposed to be.
Print media and all that is fine. I mean, they do feature local acts and all that, but at the end of the day, if you don't listen to the music, it's unlikely that you actually support, You read it and then it just, you don't keep it in mind or whatever. Because music should be heard, not read.
Each town looks the same to me, the movies and the factories.
If you look at all the local bands nowadays, all the supporters, all the fans are actually young kids, you see? And they're all like 14, 15, 16 years old. Give them another 10 years, because if they continue supporting local music, in 10 years' time they'll be like 26, 27, and they'll be running magazines, they'll be running the radio stations, they'll be running the media, and they will have the power to actually promote and push, the local music scene further.
With people actually treating bands as musicians and not as basically uneducated bums trying to hit the drum or make noise in public. I think it's a mindset change which is slowly happening. People are starting to understand that musicians here can actually produce good quality music. Hopefully in time they'll find a way to develop a sound that is Singaporean.